Executive Director Woodcrest with you for another episode of our Fireside Chats, where we go and speak to those that have been a part of Woodcrest's history and have shaped and helped Woodcrest become who it is today. I'm with Jean Martin, and I'm looking forward to our chat today and hearing her connection and her stories. She's more than the mother of Jason, our operations director. So, Jean, why don't you share your connection and your story?
Well, once upon a time, maybe when I was a preteen, young teen, I should say, when Woodcrest was first starting to make a footprint here, my dad loved the woods, and we would come up the original entrance to Woodcrest, and it always felt like we were going far away because it was so secluded up here. There weren't any buildings except maybe for the First Pavilion. And he would love to roam the mountains here. And my dad had an avid interest in Indian folklore in Pennsylvania. He knew the tribes, educated himself about them. He knew about the Indian rocks, is that what you call them? The big rock, poly rocks up there. And we would come up here, he would let us kids run and play, and he would walk just time after time, looking at those rocks, digging around, and saying, people were here a long time ago before we were. So that was my first memories of coming physically to this place.
Okay. So you were connected with Ephrata Mennonite Church,
yes,
which was the place that purchased the land and really began.
Yes.
Today.
And I still am, even though we have changed our name to a live church in Ephrata. We're still the same church family.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would have known these men who are now in heaven, who had the vision for a Woodcrest. I would have gone to church with them.
Wow. That's good. So over the years, what are the various things you've been able to do here at Woodcrest?
Well, my mother was a craft teacher for many summers, and at that time it was basically volunteers.
Okay.
She had a limited budget, but her imagination was not limited. She would take Q-tips, cotton balls, pine cones, acorns, bits and pieces or whatever.
Yeah.
And she would use those and keep the kids occupied for 45 minutes, and I would often help her.
Okay.
And of course you had the kids sticking cotton balls on their noses and whatever with the glue. No, you can't do that. And my mother was a good example for me, showing that we can reuse and recycle long before it became a thing for today.
So was she craft instructor in those early days when Elvin Martin was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know the exact years, but she often helped. And there were several summers then that I came as a Bible teacher.
Okay.
And again, I don't remember the years.
Right.
It may have been my later teens or shortly after Jerry and I were married. But I remember teaching Bible class up where the water slide is now outside. We'd sit in a circle. And I know two of my favorite stories to tell kids were the story of David and Goliath, and then Samson and Delilah. And with David, I had made a little sling and practiced with it at home and had the kids use this, and we had stones flying every direction until I realized that was not a safe activity to do, but that was part of my involvement with Woodcrest too.
Okay. And then when you married Jerry, you continued to be involved together as a couple, or?
Not so much as a couple here, physically doing things. We had Jill and Jason, and we were busy being parents, but we would support the activities that Woodcrest had here. We would come to their benefit auctions, or Sunday evening services, or whatever. And then when the prayer chapel was being built, Jason knew my love for places that are quiet and alone and away by themselves. And he said, "Mom, it's done. Why don't you just go in there and do whatever you want to accessorize it, get some benches in there." And that was such a blessing to do that, to be part of that prayer chapel completion.
That's a great space.
It is.
Just to get away.
It is. And a funny story about the prayer chapel, my daughter Jill, Jason's sister. Jason had said we could collect stones from anywhere that we want here in this mountain to line the paths of the chapel. So at that time, I don't know if it's still here, you had a rickety old pickup truck that you only used on campus. Is it still here?
I hope it's not the same one.
Well,
there is still a rickety truck.
But Jason said you use that to pick up your stones, haul them up to the prayer chapel. Well, it was stick shift, and I hadn't driven stick shift for years, and Jill says, Mom, I know how to do this. So she gets in, we load the rocks in the back of the truck, and she tries to start this pickup, and she floods it. It won't start, Mom. And I said, what you need to do is hold your foot to the accelerator, hold it down, and start the truck. It's already flooded. I said, I learned that from my husband, and it worked. So that's just some humorous thing that happened. I did know more than her.
Yeah. Those moments are nice.
They are. We laughed.
So Jason is still involved. Great part of Woodcrest, and probably that love came imparted from you guys. Just sharing that passion.
I'm sure it did. He would come along at times and help my mom, I think, with her craft classes. So he would have been quite a bit younger, of course, helping her. And we both love the outdoors. And of course, this place speaks to him in a different way than an office setting would.
Yeah. So a bonus for us, if you could get some of those baby pictures of Jason, we could.
Do I need him to sign a waiver to do this?
No, I'm his boss. I can.
Okay, sure. I can accommodate you with that request.
Okay.
Yes.
So obviously, being involved in the beginning, like you said, it was just Oak Shade Pavilion was the original structure that
Yes.
Effort had built. You've seen a lot of changes. What changes have excited you the most that you've seen over the years?
Wow. I think in general, just to see the growth. I never would have thought coming up here when there was one pavilion that it would grow into this. And because I like quiet places, I was particularly blessed when I heard a prayer chapel was being built. And I remember well the day Jason called me. He said, Mom, I have 3 places picked out here on the mountain where it's possible to put the prayer chapel. Would you come and help me make a decision? Sure. He showed me the first place. I said, no. He showed me the second spot. I said, no. So we start walking out the dirt road up there where the chapel is, and I'm thinking, this is feeling more like it. And so when we got to that spot, he said, here's the other opportunity for the place. And I said, this is where it should be. So that was so special to me, to see that. And then I think of the 3, I forget how many men originally had the vision for this place. If they could see it now, just to see how God's hand was on the fruitful times and the times that seem lean, there's a sense of perseverance here that I have sensed all these years. And then to see the day camp program grow from maybe a 5-hour span each day, kids will go home, to an overnight camp, and then into weeks, and then to going off campus with field trips. So amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you often wonder, talk to them like, did you ever see a summer where there'd be 2,000 kids coming to hear the gospel? And
I'd say in Ephrata.
Yeah.
And God said yes.
Yeah. It'd be nice to even begin the track because we often don't know the impact. So a kid that was here in the 70s who heard the gospel, get elected to Christ, what they go on to do, and how a little place here on the mountain of Ephrata can have a global impact in God's kingdom.
Yeah, so we're fruitful. We plant the seeds, we plow up the ground, plant the seeds, and others come along and tend and nourish and water, and that's been the journey of any ministry, including here. Yeah.
So obviously, we've added lots of buildings and lots of things have been growing in the years, but yet I feel like a lot stays the same. That whole mission hasn't changed.
And that's good.
Right. And I know the heart early on was to reach unchurched kids, to reach underserved kids, poorer kids. It's still very much who Woodcrest is. It is. If it's God's ministry, He will sustain it.
Do you feel like a kid sitting
I
here
do.
swinging
I
your
love
feet?
it. And I think that I haven't swung too much. Like it
Okay,
just wants
so
to
we
go.
will try to sit still. Be still and know.
So looking, getting ready to celebrate 65 years of ministry. The exciting part is God's not done with Woodcrest yet.
Absolutely not.
What would you be saying to those that would come after you? What charge, what words of encouragement, what admonition from the Lord would you want to pass on so that what Woodcrest is would continue?
As a young person, my spirituality was quite shallow, and it was only as I've grown, especially in my senior years, and I welcome those years. I mean, I'm healthy. God has blessed me in so many ways, and I've had more time to sit and reflect and think and pray and journal. But looking back, I realized that Jesus and me, I was taught quite a bit in my early years. A lot of it was religion, but over time it's relationship. So the more I get to know Jesus, the more I let him into my life, the more I'm real with him, the more specific I am with him, he becomes more real and specific with me. And to young people, it's hard, it's a challenge, but it's not impossible.
And that's, I mean, I think what draws me to camp ministry in general, and what I see here at Woodcrest is creating that space.
Yes.
We create a space for people to come
Yes.
and encounter Jesus.
Yes.
Outside the ordinary, outside the noise of the world, whether it's at the prayer chapel, here at the swings, with a church group, that's what we do. And I think that was the early vision as well.
Yes.
It's just create a space away from the world.
And I think I would also tell them that God made us all so differently on purpose. And so we are each going to be drawn to God and his spirit in ways that he created our personality. And he wants us to develop that. For me, it's the outdoors. For somebody, it might be music. For somebody else, it might be studying scripture. There's a multitude of ways. Or it may be artwork. Listen to how God is speaking to your heart. Pay attention to how he's developed your character and let that feed into your relationship with Jesus. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Last question. Any funny stories? We like to laugh because God has a great sense of humor.
Relating to Woodcrest?
Woodcrest or Jason, I would do either.
Jason, I love Jason dearly. I have many funny stories I could tell. That's for
another day. Okay.
A funny story here. One summer, years ago, this is before we had a all summer director with camp, people were volunteering. And so one summer I took a week or two to direct day camp. And it was lunchtime, the kids were coming into the pavilion up here. I was trying to get them quiet to settle for prayer for our meal and explain what was coming up, and they just wouldn't oblige. In frustration, I went to the kitchen and got the biggest stock pot or kettle I could find and a big metal spoon, and I just walked out into the pavilion and I started rattling this spoon as hard as I could and banging it, and it made a terrific and tremendous noise, and that got their attention. And I remember the next day they asked, "Aren't you going to bang on the kettle again?" So that's just something I remember. I said, "No, we don't need the kettle today." Thank God for humor.
Yes. Yeah. No. We love that God created us with a sense of humor. So that wraps up another episode of our Fireside Chats, talking with the legacy builders and hearing their stories, so that their stories become our stories, because it's all a part of God's stories. I guess that's his story, history.
That's right.
I heard that somewhere. Right. But so thank you for listening. Stay tuned for our next